Hello everybody and welcome to another live stream. There's a lot of stuff to go through in the beginning of this video just because there's been a huge update on my website. But before we begin that, I'm just going to show you where I left off for this image and what I did in addition before starting today's live stream. So let me just turn off the title card here. Last stream, I actually finished image at this point here. However, I've actually done quite a bit of work ahead of time to help refine some of the details in both of these characters here. So this is what I currently have for this image. So just to give you a good idea, that's what I started off with. I have the basic structure. And then I started doing a lot of the shading and the lighting to get the proper atmosphere that I was hoping to get for this image. So I've gone ahead and I've done a lot of work on this ahead of time. And that's just to save a bit of time for today. Essentially what I'm going to probably be focusing on is maybe adding a bit more detail in here. I don't really technically need to add too much detail in her hat. I may go in and refine some of those elements, however. And then maybe refine a bit of the elements, especially the wing area for this character here. So there's going to be essentially some fine tweaking. The background is supposed to be blurry because of the type of angle that it's at, so I'm not too worried about that. And I'm generally pretty happy about the lighting. But before we continue with that, I'm just going to give you guys an update on my website because there has been actually a lot of changes done recently. So if you guys follow my Twitter, my Facebook, all that, you would also be aware of these changes. So for a while now I've had my store, but what some of you guys may not know is that I was prototyping these D20 dice for 3 years and they're finally done. They're on my website. There's only a couple. There's only 2 currently in stock. These take about a minimum of 3 days to make. They have to be hand sanded and hand finished and then balanced. So there's 2 versions of that right now. There's the jade green and then there's the blue frost. Also in the general shop, if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a bunch of t-shirts now. So along with everything else, you can actually get a bunch of different t-shirt designs with dragons, with orcas on there. Depending on essentially the popularity, I may invest more time, but we'll see later on. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, I'm going to actually move on because you guys came to see me actually digitally paint, not necessarily see my merch store. So let's get started on this. So I do have essentially a grouping for this image that I've labeled as effects, and that's general lighting effects. So I've added a lightning to the color and then a dark color around it just to help draw your attention towards the hummingbird. But when I do my digital painting and I'm doing any detail work, I generally turn those effects off just because I need to actually see exactly what it looks like beforehand. So in this case, I'm going to, I think I still have one more effect on here that I might have to turn off. We'll see. If you guys are wondering, this is actually a really simple brush. I don't recall where I got it, but it does add a bit more detail to the highlights, which makes things a little bit easier when you're working. It just speeds things up rather than have to manually paint it. Okay, in case you guys were wondering, this is essentially the original rough, but I've gone in and ahead of time and I've actually refined a lot of the detail elements in here. what I generally do is I actually generally go ahead and flatten a lot of my layers nowadays. It just means that I have less things to worry about because I'm not being as distracted as much. There's pros and cons to doing that. The downside is that if you make a mistake, you can't really go back. Um, so this part isn't erasing, so that tells me that there's a portion I forgot to erase in a different layer. So if you have the selection tool selected, you can actually go in and um, select the hierarchy. And you're normally able to find it pretty easy as long as you don't have too many layers. Okay, so in this case it's actually an area that I actually did not paint. So that's a pretty easy fix. Okay, guys, I think that's going to be it for today. Because I'm pretty happy with this image right now. I might go in and add just some very light specular highlights in, especially the bird, and then maybe a couple more into this character here and this character here. But this image is pretty much done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream, and I hope to see you guys soon. So thank you and take care.